Hello, everyone, and welcome to this first episode of Healthy Living Be Life podcast. I am your host and longevity concierge, Denise Stegall, and I am a passionate advocate for helping women, just like you, find their path to vibrant health and wellness. And I'm really excited that you have joined me today. In this podcast, Healthy Living, Happy Life, I'll be sharing everything that I've learned about living a healthy, happy life by focusing on the basics, nourishing the body, nurturing your mind, and supporting the spirit, whatever that means to you. If you've ever felt lost in the whirlwind of health trends, endless diets, or quick fix solutions that are all over the internet and all over social media, this show is for you. I'm going to cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters and what truly works. Eating real food, making informed decisions, and then taking personal accountability. The accountability piece is so important. These three things are like three legs of a stool. Each one of them is equally important because if one of them falls short, the stool wobbles, right? And you fall over. So eating real food, making informed decisions, and taking personal accountability. And we'll definitely get into that in more detail in future podcasts. These are the principles that transformed my life. And I know they can do the same for you. So before diving into today's topic, I'd like to share a little about myself. As I said, I'm Denise Stegall, and I don't just talk about healthy living, I live it. I've been married to my best friend, Mark, for 21 wonderful years. We're actually celebrating our anniversary this coming weekend. What else? We love to travel. I love traveling, exploring new cultures. And I'm actually a certified plant-based chef, actually a professional certified plant-based chef. I advocate for a plant-forward diet. Although I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, I don't really ever talk about, one should be on a specific diet unless a doctor has recommended it to a client, or unless it's something that you really feel strongly about. A handful of years ago, my niece decided to go vegan, completely vegan, and my sister really didn't know how to help her. And so I walked her through, how do you become vegan? And she was only 13 or 14 at the time. And so that was something she was really passionate about at the time. Now, flash forward a handful of years, and she follows a more Mediterranean style way of eating. Again, not a diet, but way of eating. As a coach and best-selling author, and again, passionate advocate for women's health, there's a reason why I'm so passionate about it. And you'll definitely figure that out as we continue. But probably the main reason is because I've walked the same path as many of you are on now. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and I am Dee to two of the best nieces and one pretty cool nephew. My role in their lives is as their mother, the one who doesn't yell at them. What else? I'm a 3-time, 1, 2, 3, yes, best-selling author, coach, and again, advocate for women's health. But more importantly, since I've walked that same path as you, I am your cheerleader, I'm your support system, and I can be your BFF along the way. For years, I personally struggled with conflicting health advice, always searching for the next, or a quick fix, or a fix. It wasn't until that I actually returned to the basics of health that I actually found lasting energy, confidence, and joy. And that's what I am here to do, is to help you find that joy, that excitement back in life, and a healthy way of living that works for you. But I'm trying to go through all of the trial and error that I did. Yes, it will be a little bit of trial and error just to see, what really does work for you, but without all of the stress. Like I already know some of the things that you won't have to deal with because I've already been there. And, one of the things is, of course, I'm 53 years old, so I'm still on a path. And I think as women, we're on a path throughout our entire lives when it comes to our health and wellness. So what sets me apart is I use an evidence-based approach. I have a background in food and nutrition. I focus on practical, science-backed advice, not advice, information, rather than the latest trends and gimmicks. Trust me, I have fallen for all of them. And I've dedicated my career to learning and teaching the fundamentals of health and wellness, using scientific research to cut through all of the misinformation and all of the nonsense and misinformation that is out there on the internet. I'm sure many of you have done this. You've gone to look up a certain challenge or a certain problem or an answer to a certain question. And an hour later, you're still sitting at the computer or looking at your phone and you have more questions than you have answers. My goal here is to give you more answers than you have questions. And the information I offer is practical. It's information that fits into your life, not the other way around. I think so often when it comes to diets and workouts, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Things just don't fit. And that's really the entire premise of my first book. You're going to be amazed what this is titled, right? Healthy Living, Happy Life. The subtitle, though, is A Practical Path to Finding a Healthy Lifestyle That Works for You. I understand that overwhelm that so many women, so many of you who are listening feel, because I've been there. And I've been there a couple of times throughout my journey. Because again, every few years things change. The good news is when you know where to look or you know who to look to for answers, it just makes the journey that much easier. So my podcast is for anyone looking to creating a lasting, positive change in their health. Whether you're just starting, whether that's just starting with, you woke up one day and said, you know what, I really need to make some changes. Or you're already on this journey and you're looking to deepen your knowledge and experience along the way. So in today's episode, I want to share my personal journey. I've given you a couple of hints here and there, but I want to tell you a little bit how I went from feeling stuck, anxious, and exhausted to living a life full of energy and confidence. I've always called this a life worth living, right? Not that things are bad, but we want life to be full of joy and excitement and energy. We want to be doing the things that we love to do. We want that life that is worth living rather than feeling like we're constantly just going through the motions and, just getting by. So this is my story. I call this my breaking point. At 37 years old, I hit a wall. Let me tell you, hit a wall. Despite having everything I'd ever wanted in life, I felt physically and emotionally drained. And I was happily married to my best friend, and we were traveling the world. I mean, I should have been on top of the world. Everything should have been perfect, but it wasn't. I was struggling with something so personal and private that I was too embarrassed to talk about it. So I didn't, and I felt completely lost and alone. What I was experiencing were constant mood swings, anxiety, and hot flashes. And sadly, my doctors completely dismissed my concerns. It was just a phase. Actually, one of them said to me, "Oh, at your age, it's just a phase. You'll be fine." But I didn't feel fine. I felt stuck in a body and a mind that was no longer my own. I had never in all of my years experienced mood swings or anxiety. That was never who I was or anything I had ever experienced. So this was really scary for me. So what did I do? I tried every single supplement wellness trend and so-called solution out there, but nothing worked. Of course it didn't. Frustrated though, I finally said, okay, I'm going to take control of my health, figure out what's going on, focus on the basics. And through some tears, a lot of research, a little Dr. Google, and again, a lot of tears, I learned that I was actually experiencing perimenopause. I had never heard that term ever before. The truth is that not all women actually realize that they're experiencing perimenopause because symptoms can vary really widely, I would say. While about 75% of women experience one symptom or another, the intensity and type differ for everyone. And perimenopause is really interesting because it can start in your early 30s. Now, I was 37, so not quite early 30s, but it can start in your early 30s and can actually go until your early 60s, depending on when you actually go into menopause. That's a long phase, as that one doctor said to me. So unfortunately, what happens is so many women, just like me, are dismissed or misdiagnosed. And I think that's really, really frightening. At one point, I had a doctor say to me that maybe I needed to be on an antidepressant. And I thought, why would I need to be on an antidepressant? Even while you're dealing with mood swings and anxiety, and that's all symptoms, antidepressant will work for these. And I really thought, well, wait a minute, there's something deeper here. But I wanted to know what was causing this because I'd never experienced it before. Well, you know what? The doctor wasn't. He was just ready to write me a prescription for antidepressant and get me out the door. So back to that research I was doing, and I identified the root cause of my problem, perimenopause, I then was able to stop chasing health trends. And again, go back to the basics. I have a degree that focuses on nutrition and food. So I knew I had some information there that I wasn't paying attention to that I really knew I needed to dig into again. So funny enough, a couple of years after I had kind of gotten on track and started to really feel better and feel like I had kind of nailed it, I got everything back on track, I found out that my cousin, or one of my cousins on my mother's side of the family, had also experienced perimenopause in her mid-30s. She was actually younger than I was, when she was starting to experience perimenopause. Well, that would have been a good thing for me to know ahead of time, right? But like me, it wasn't something she was comfortable to talk about. I have a whole podcast planned out that talks about this, just about perimenopause and menopause, but getting back to health. But again, I was so embarrassed to talk about it in the beginning. But now I realize that the more we talk about it, the more as women we understand our bodies, we understand what we're going through, and actually we can understand each other better. So one of the key shifts that I made was moving away from processed foods. Not that I ate a lot of them, but enough. I did have crackers and I did have cookies in my house. And of course, every now and then we would go out and, eat some food that, obviously was processed. So instead, I embraced whole foods, fresh fruits, fresh veggies, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and lean proteins. These are the bulk of my meals. These are nutrient dense, and these foods give the body what it needs to function optimally. And when you go to a doctor, they talk about how a patient feels, functions, and survives. And occasionally you'll hear me talk about that because when we talk about perimenopause and food, really, how is that food? How does it make us feel? How is it making us function? Are we surviving or are we thriving? So nutrient-dense whole foods are going to help us for our bodies to function at their best. Obviously, in contrast then, processed foods that are stripped of these nutrients and are loaded with harmful ingredients, added sugars, with added sodium, artificial preservatives, and ingredients, these can all lead to inflammation and other health issues that actually exacerbate the challenges and symptoms of perimenopause. So just a little bit about processed foods and sodium and some of these. And in further future episodes, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But just to kind of give you a little bit of a baseline here. And a lot of us know this, we just don't think about it on a regular basis. Processed foods are often packaged with high amounts of added sugar, which lead to blood sugar spikes, energy crashes, and long-term health issues. And we know this, we have an epidemic here in the US and in many of the countries now, like obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Recent research actually links sugar to Alzheimer's disease due to its role in insulin resistance, which occurs when the body's cells stop responding to insulin, which leads to elevated blood sugars. So if you have elevated blood sugar and you're eating foods that have added sugar to it, you're just continually elevating your blood sugar. And eventually this ends up turning into diabetes. And as I said, with this Alzheimer's or sugar Alzheimer's connection, this is something that we really need to pay attention to. So while this is kind of deep and especially the Alzheimer's piece, we will definitely cover this in more detail in the future. But it's important to, bottom line, to know that added sugar negatively affects not just your body, but your brain too. Sodium is another major culprit in this processed food challenge that we have. While obviously your body needs small amounts of sodium to, again, function properly, excess sodium, which you find mostly in processed snacks, frozen meals, and oh my gosh, canned soups. Do not just stop buying canned soups. This added sodium raises blood pressure and increases cardiovascular risk. Yes, heart disease, all of those things are related to increased sodium. And processed foods are also loaded with artificial preservatives and ingredients, colors and flavors that can actually disrupt your body's natural processes, which lead to issues like sluggishness, inflammation, internal inflammation, which we know is the basis of all disease in the body. So inflammation is not a good thing. Additionally, this also can disrupt your hormonal balance, creating hormonal imbalances. If you're already struggling with hormonal imbalances, this is just, again, exacerbating the challenge. One of the ingredients I do like to pick on, because it's in everything, is high fructose corn syrup. When I say it's in everything, it's in ketchup, it's in diet soda. It's almost in everything that is in a box or a can, processed foods. And they are particularly harmful and difficult for the body to process. So again, when you're thinking of how your body feels, functions, and survives, if you're eating food with these ingredients, your body is not going to feel good. It's not going to function well. And you're going to be surviving as opposed to thriving. And we want to thrive in life. We have this one life to live, right? So let's enjoy it. And to enjoy it, we need to pay much more attention to what we're eating. So when I made the switch from the processed foods that I had been eating to whole nutrient-dense options, the changes were pretty immediate. Now, I'm not 100% clean. I don't think anybody really is. I believe in the 80-20 rule. Probably in my life, most of the time, I'm 90, 100. But when I'm traveling, sometimes that's hard. So it's okay to, if 20% of the time, if you're not eating clean, that's okay. You just have to make sure that you're paying attention. And if you do have processed foods, kind of pick the least of the evils, right? But when I say that my changes were immediate, it was probably within 2 weeks. My energy levels actually stabilized because they were kind of, some days I felt really good, other days I was tired. My mood improved. And I no longer succumbed to those 3 p.m. snack attacks. I didn't realize how much that was affecting me, but by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I needed some caffeine or some sugar or something. And I no longer needed that because I was fueling my body with real foods that were making all the difference, giving me that lasting energy and improved my overall well-being. And when I say that, I really mean body, mind, and spirit. And again, I'll break down some of the things I've talked about a little bit today. I'll break that down in future episodes. But truly, by focusing on these whole foods, this is one of the simplest but most powerful things you can do for your health. When you fuel your body, and I do mean fuel, and some people say, oh, don't use that, that's not a great thing to just think of food as fuel, because we do know that, food is pleasure. There is, we do want to enjoy our food. It's not all about, calories in, calories out, and 80% of your food has to be perfect. And we do want to enjoy our food, but we can also enjoy our foods, the whole foods, equally as much as we can, any of the processed foods that we think we need and we think we enjoy. Once you stop eating them, you realize, you don't need them anymore. And when you try them again, you won't even like them. So the real food, obviously, what's it doing? It supports your natural process. It boosts your energy. Interesting. I even found joy in exercise again because I didn't enjoy it. I was a dancer and an athlete growing up, and that wasn't fun anymore. I didn't do that. I didn't love going to the gym, but oh my gosh, I found joy in running half marathons with my husband. Was it exhausting? Of course it was, but it was also exhilarating. And I realized when I was usually in that euphoria of runner's high, that really is a thing, by the way, that I realized that living a healthy life, happy life, is possible for anyone, no matter where you're starting, right? I had been tracking this, so I know how bad I felt in the beginning and how great I felt as time went on. And again, it's not about being perfect. It is about making good decisions daily and allowing yourself grace when things don't go as planned and staying committed to your well-being. That's that eat real food, make good decisions, be accountable that I like to talk about. But I do think it's really important to realize that things aren't perfect and to give yourself a little bit of grace when things just aren't perfect, because nothing's perfect. While I was on this journey, I was inspired to write my best-selling book, Healthy Living, Happy Life, Practical Path to Finding a Healthy Lifestyle That Works for You. Now, in the book, I dive deeper into the fundamental principles or foundational principles that transformed my own life. Simple, sustainable strategies that help you, again, nourish your body, mind, and spirit. These are the same principles that I use in my coaching practice, whether I'm working with private clients one-on-one or through my group program. My goal is to help women create lasting, positive change without feeling overwhelmed or skipping dessert. Guess what? I love dessert. Dessert is part of a healthy, happy lifestyle. It's just, again, in moderation. It's how are you planning that dessert into your meal? So if you're ready to take the next step, you can go and grab a copy of my book. You can go on Amazon. You can get more information by visiting my website, denisestegall.com, or check out kfredradio.com to learn more. I want to thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Healthy Living, Happy Life. If you've ever felt like wellness is out of reach or too complicated, I want you to know it's not. It's possible. I'm here to help guide you. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out my book. And again, that offers a complete roadmap for you to get started. And also be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss future episodes where we will explore more of the essentials of healthy living, happy life. Sometimes it'll just be me. Other times I'll have some other experts to share their knowledge. All of this is to help you to learn and grow and to find that healthy lifestyle that works for you. So until next time, remember, eat real food, make good decisions, and hold yourself accountable to those decisions. Healthy living, happy life is just around the corner.